Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for choosing to join us and spend some of your Thursday evening with us. I'm Holly Grange, and I'm exhibitions curator here at Leeds Art Gallery. And I'm here to briefly introduce the event and Lubaina, who possibly needs no introduction. But Lubaina was the curator of Found Cities Lost Objects, which was the touring exhibition organised by co-curator Beth Hughes and the Arts Council collection, which we've been absolutely thrilled to host for the last 3 months at the Leeds Art Gallery and just closed this Sunday. If you saw the exhibition, thank you for your visit. And if you didn't see the show, fear not, as we have a great archive of documentation from the exhibition on our Bloomberg app, which you can download and access for free. So the talk tonight should run to a nice round hour in length, with Lubaina chairing a conversation with the 4 Billboard artists. Each artist has prepared some images to share with you tonight of the billboards and some previous relevant projects. And then hopefully there'll be 10 minutes or so at the end for some of your questions. If I could ask you to please keep your mics and cameras turned off during the event, that would be fantastic. And please use the chat function to pose any questions during or at the end of the conversation. We've allowed closed captioning, and you can select this function at the bottom of your screens by clicking CC or the triple dot and more options, and then you should see a captions option available to you there. So Lubaina is a Turner Prize winning artist, cultural activist and curator. She's also Professor of Contemporary Art at the University of Central Lancashire. For 4 decades, she's worked tirelessly at a practice that involves uncovering marginalised and silent histories, figures and cultural expressions, particularly those of women and the Black diaspora. During the lockdown, Lubaina worked closely with co-curator Beth Hughes to curate a selection of works that explored the experience of women and gender non-conforming artists and people in the city. The show brilliantly touched on themes of safety and navigation, concepts of belonging and power, histories of protest, issues of accessibility, and women's relationship to the built environment. One incredible aspect of the tour, which ensured that the exhibition connected locally with artists and audiences within each host city, was the call-out opportunity for Billboard commissions. The 4 Billboard designs in Leeds are up until the end of the month, and their locations can be found on the gallery's website. The 4 Billboard artists that were selected from an open call out are Becca Blake, Hannaa Hamdache, Alicja, Mrozowska, and Jioni. And I think you'll agree, if you've seen the billboards, that they've really risen to the challenge and produced some work that's incredibly thought-provoking, visually arresting, and prompts us to look again at the fabric of our city through a feminist lens. I'll now hand over to Lubaina to chair the conversation. I just want to say thank you to Lubaina, and thank you also to our 4 Billboard artists.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you very much indeed for joining us all. I'm speaking from New York, so I'm kind of in the city of cities somehow, surrounded by noise and buildings and parks and people and cars. I really want to say thank you, actually, to many people, and it's sort of part of why I do this work, is that it's very important to me for everyone to understand that this is not a kind of a single job. I don't do any of this on my own. And I think what's been incredible about this Billboard project is how so many people are involved in making it work. You know, Beth Hughes, who co-curated this with me, was at the time when we started this an Arts Council curator. So she had absolute knowledge of the work in the collection. And as we talked about that, we talked about the kind of show we wanted to make, We talked about what it meant to be an artist, and what it meant to see your work in the context of the city or place that it was being shown in, and what it meant for audiences who very, very often are artists. To go to an exhibition about cities, you're going to an exhibition in a city, and you want to be part of that exhibition on another level. And what's been incredible all along is that in each of the cities that this exhibition has toured to, each of the curators in Birmingham, in Southampton, in Bristol, and of course in Leeds, are very well connected. And of course, I would always say they need to be even more connected, but are very connected with the artists working in that city. But they know each of those cities, but they're not always able to give opportunities for those artists to show work. You know, questions of funding or questions of how you run the gallery, or the need to bring work from international places or to expand on big ideas are often the sort of reasons that artists who live and work in a place don't always get to show in the city art gallery that they visit and that they take their families to and that they spend time in. So this was an opportunity to really make some connections and to see what artists in each of those cities actually, I don't know, wanted to contribute, I suppose, wanted to contribute to the city itself, to the exhibition as it came through, and to the conversations that we were trying to have in the exhibition itself. And as we go around each artist this evening, I want to find out things from them, like I think everyone's interested in the work that they normally do, the artwork that they would usually make that isn't designed for a billboard and isn't in relation necessarily to a project that's being commissioned. So I think I'm going to try and find out a bit more about what each of the artists, what their concerns are, what they're interested in. But also, I'm interested in sort of quite conversational things, like what are their favorite places in the city that they're living in now? What city would they rather live in than the city they're living in now? What would they like to find out about other places, other cities, other artists who are interested in being more active, more part of the sort of changing agenda of how we function in places that were essentially built by men for men, and whether this matters. So hopefully in the next, 40 minutes or so, we can kind of just play around with some of those questions, get to talk about the billboards themselves, and hear more about the artists. What I'd really like to do first of all, and I'll keep, talking every now and again because it's hard to shut me up, but I'll try and give enough space so that you actually get to exchange with the artists themselves rather than just me. But what I'd really like to show you first of all, and I think that someone's going to help us with this, is to see all four of the billboards great, up at the same time. So such is the nature of billboards that quite often we engage with them as we're either whizzing past on the bus or whizzing past in a car or on the other side of the street. And that's the kind of fun of it. You see something, later on, you're on the other side of the city or around the corner or somewhere else, and you see it again. But the point is that billboards have to compete with, as you can see here, they have to compete with graffiti, road markings, chimneys, cars, trees. And each time we've commissioned artists in each of those cities I mentioned, we always needed artists who had the courage to pit their work not against a lovely white wall in a beautifully lit gallery, but had the kind of nerve to put it out there in a space where you're competing either around the corner with an advert for a car or an advert for a record album or whatever, and that would engage with passers-by, however long or however short they happen to look at them. And I think you'll agree here that we chose some fabulously dynamic images and images too with a sense of hope and joy and looking forward. You know, I think that's very much one of the most important things to me, is that I'm absolutely aware of the huge sort of challenges that all of us have in our everyday, whether it's to do with, things happening in your family or things happening in the world, or, those kind of issues that interrupt the life you might like, an easy life that we all might like. But from the work that we chose, the artists that we chose to go forward, it was important that there was a sense of I don't know, going forward into a kind of dynamic future, and not giving the kind of messages that women in the city are already having to deal with, which is a little bit that kind of always having to be aware, whether you have to be aware if you're an older person about how steep the stairs or the steps are to something, or how heavy the door is to push open, or how dark the street is. I wanted all the artists involved to kind of take this bull by the horns, this city by the horns, and say, okay, this is what I see, this is how I experience it, and can we kind of start a conversation? So, and I think the artists here in Leeds have absolutely done that. I have to say that I think the applications for this commission in Leeds were something like 4 times as many. I think certainly well over 100 applications for this. So these 4 artists really, had to battle against a lot of other artists to get out there into the street. We had an incredible response, and I think that is because the exhibition has been going around the country for a while now, but also because there is this terrific community and communities of artists working in Leeds. I think that kind of became very, very obvious to us, and a set of artists that are quite determined, and I would say to all artists in all cities in Britain, be determined to connect with your city art gallery, your local art gallery. It's there for you, it's yours, everything in it belongs to you. You have to remember that. It's not like going to a shop where you go to a shop and things don't belong to you till you buy them. These public spaces, public art spaces, are ours. They belong to us. So kind of own them. You know what I mean? What I'd like to do is perhaps go, first of all, from one artist to another. and just ask each one of you to talk a little bit about the poster that you've designed, and a little bit about the work that you would the artwork that you would normally be making and thinking about if you know, sort of before you did this poster. I hope that's all right with everybody, but I think it helps audiences kind of to get an idea that these things don't come just out of your head one afternoon. You know, you've all been, you're all much younger than me, but you've been working for a long time, kind of thinking about where you are and sort of visual language. So I'd like to start, if I can, with Becca, if that's okay. So if you could show us your sorry. You could show us your poster and just talk a little bit about it.
Of course. Hello, my name's Becca. I'll just share my screen. So I'll do a quick whiz through this. So yeah, I'm an illustrator, graduated last year from Norwich, and I've moved to Leeds, and I've lived in Leeds for about 6 months now, so it's very new. And where I lived before at home is a tiny town, and then I moved to Norwich, was a smaller city, and then Leeds is huge. It's gonna be a bit overwhelming. This is my billboard. So for some context, it's based off a section from a book written by Dolores Hayden, which is a professor in architecture in Yale, and it was for a feminist journal. And basically what she wrote was excuse me, she made a plan for a non-sexist city, essentially, which I'll show you the diagram of here. So my piece is based off that, and it talks about having like shared spaces. Sorry, 2 seconds. Yeah, you know, it's housing, services and jobs to women and families, but not just families, just for everyone. Yeah, and I also combined using this as a base, this sketch as a base, combined research from the Matrix Cooperative, which talked a lot about visibility for women, which doesn't mean just light. It means that stuff like keeping vegetation like a meter tall, so people can't hide, like trees maintained, stop, make sure they're not blocking lights, get rid of dark spots. I also made some of the buildings, the bottom floor of the buildings, like windows, because a lot of crime and stuff happens in like rich places where they have huge gates and walls and stuff. No one can see what's going on. So that's just an extra bit of visibility. Lots of public transport on there. Yeah, just lots of shared spaces basically, and sports like badminton and netball. As I've noticed, like around Leeds, a lot of like public sports places are like football or rugby, which are typically dominated by men. And if you go as a woman, you will be, I don't know, it's not nice. Where it doesn't feel like it's your place. It's nice to have designated places for that. Yeah. And lots of toilets on there as well. Yeah, so is there anything else we need to show previous work or any questions?
Well, yeah, I mean, I just think it's taking in a whole lot of stuff. It's very green, I notice. So, which is kind of not that difficult if it's a place where it rains all the time. So that's
Yeah.
really good and easy to do. I
Yeah.
like the fact that you were thinking about lots of toilets. Apparently, you know, when some of these very sort of big cities were built, that wasn't thought of, ha ha ha. And of course, then what happens is that, you know, elderly people, whether they're men or women, pregnant people, find it very difficult to enter the city because they're just anxious all the time that, you know, to be uncomfortable. What I like about the ideas that you've got here is that it still seems quite urban, because it's very difficult to still have a place that's sort of exciting and very urban and forward thinking, but also takes into account that occasionally seeing something green or something being sort of easily accessible is important. It's really hard to get that balance right, because if you lean too far towards a kind of pleasant green low rise, lo-fi sort of thing, you end up with a small town, or you end up with the suburbs. Do you know what I mean? So kind of getting somewhere that's exciting to be if you're, you know, 18 or 20, and but that's also possible for somebody of 75 to go and, you know, do their shopping and go to the cinema, is a kind of balance, you know. So none of us are saying it's easy, but I really like the way this has those sorts of you're taking into account those kinds of things.
Stuff like it was just interesting researching, like making sure pavements are like super wide and having entrances be ground level so that people can actually go in them. Yeah, just yeah.
Yeah, and you know, there's that thing about buildings, you know, that generally speaking, architects are rather too fond of how a building looks from the outside, which of course is fine, but it becomes a statement about the architect instead of something that perhaps a set of human beings wish to interact with. And you know, one of my huge gripes is that often buildings that are spectacular from the outside are really very difficult to function in from the inside. But I can kind of see that you're thinking around those things. And did you talk to any people, any other people that you know about
I
about this?
didn't. I didn't.
A real
Sorry.
artist. No, it's fine. It's fine. I think you know, I think that's a sort of what you've done here, you know, is, you know, you've done your research, you've made something that's yours, but then you shared it with probably hundreds of thousands of people without actually even knowing who they are. And what do you think about this sort of idea of working on a billboard? Did it seem, is it sort of thing you might want to try again, or are you not really getting what you personally as an artist needed from it? I think we're getting lots as viewers of this, but what are you getting from it?
I'd like to do it again. It was really fun. It's also been an amazing opportunity anyway, because it's one of my first commissions post uni, so that's been nice. Yeah, I'd do it again. I think it's nice. Billboards are cool. Like if you're stuck in traffic, like you're gonna, which people are, you're gonna look at it and it's, I think because they're so big and you only see it for a second, it's cool. There's just lots of room for interpretation, I guess, because you're only, yeah, I think it's cool. And if you're walking, it's even nicer. Yeah.
That's good. It's good because,
Yeah.
you know, it does take nerve, actually. I don't know, you know, people who don't make artworks don't always understand. It takes quite a lot of nerve to do this stuff and put it out. Okay, that's really great.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on to the, we'll all come back round again
Yeah.
eventually, if you see what I mean. But I'd like to talk to Hannah now, if possible. So if you could put your billboard up on the screen.
Yeah, just one moment.
Terrific. And yeah, it's just great to see the strength of these billboards, you know, the strength of image and the dynamism that you employ here. So you want to talk us through something about what you're trying to do and what you think you succeeded in doing.
Yeah, sure. So my billboard is called Evenscape, and that's because the female figure that you see kind of as the horizon of the cityscape is called Even. So she lives in the centre of Leeds in City Square. And essentially she's been around for over 100 years or so. So it was really about recontextualizing female public sculpture, because often if we think of female sculpture in the public realm, you know, there's not many clothes involved. And if you think of kind of male sculptures, you know, they're full of armor, they're normally on a horse looking kind of very strong. And often kind of the female figures are more for decoration. So what I wanted to do was to recontextualize her by having her be the horizon of kind of this new imagined urban landscape of Leeds through patterns of place. So in my practice, I'm really interested in patterns of place and how much motifs are rooted in a locality, and how seeing a certain pattern or colour can really transport you without ever having to actually travel. So what I wanted to do was kind of capture that visual language and those patterns that are present in the city of Leeds to kind of create these new horizons and this new landscape that kind of recontextualizes Even as an emblem for the city rather than just being a decorative figure, essentially.
And is it very much like other work that you've made?
So yes, so I've got some other slides I can kind of go into. So that's
Have a look at a couple. Yeah, that's great. I love that next to that
yeah,
post.
it's really
Film
nice.
post. It's really good.
So it's similar in terms of a photographic series that I've got that's called the Al Jazeera series. So Al Jazeera means Algerian, so I'm of English and Algerian heritage. So my practice explores my mixed heritage. So the idea with these are from family photographs. So it's kind of creating new multi-layered realities that span decades. So you've got photos, for example, that are taken from the 80s, from when my mum first went to Algeria, through to photos that I've taken recently from last year, and using kind of that pattern of place idea to kind of create these they're almost slightly surreal, I think, and they're quite nostalgic actually, because they're really rooted in that place in one of my home countries, but they're really rooted in authenticity because they come from a family photo book, essentially. So with these, nothing is replaced that isn't already in the photo, but with Evenscape, it was imagining a whole new landscape. So everything has been imagined and new and placed for a certain reason. So with these, there's a slightly different angle to them, but there is a similarity with them. But yeah, so there's another one as well.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. And let's go back to, that's really, really good. That gives us a super context. Let's go back to the poster again. And do you feel that if you did something like this again, you would want to do it any differently? I mean, was it useful in that way, in terms of developing the work? Or do you think, okay, no, I've done it now. I never want to see the work this big again and in such a public space?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting because those images from the Al Jazeera series,
Mm.
they keep their original 4x6 form.
Yes,
So there's
great.
something very intimate about them, they're personal
Yeah.
photographs. So it was really interesting to work on such a larger scale and a larger format. With kind of a different intention behind it, because it really was about the city and the surrounding environment rather than a family narrative, and kind of a personal experience. So I have to say, like I went round. So these are all film photos that were taken on a camera, on a film camera. But I've got loads of pictures that I didn't use and loads of like textures and kind of bits of fabric of the city. So I could very happily make many more billboards, to be honest. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I think that's given us a kind of real a real picture of what you do, what you like to do, and how the billboard sort of has developed the work, and how something different might come from it afterwards. Thanks. And so now I'd like to ask Alicja to show us her billboard and talk a bit about her work.
Cool. Hi everyone. It's been great listening so far. It's like a really good art podcast. Yeah, so this is my billboard. It's titled Polski Sklep, which just means Polish shop. And I guess I was really drawn to this opportunity because I make work about my Polish identity and also just navigating kind of a dual identity as someone who's lived in the UK and in the north longer than I lived in Poland. So this multicultural aspect of the city and showcasing that really aligned for me. And it's something like a Polish artwork. I know I'm biased, but there's something I wanted to see a little bit more of in Leeds. And my practice started in paintings and portraiture, and as it's kind of like followed me in my life, like we've both kind of grown into something different. So I started painting portraits and then started using my work to kind of navigate the nostalgia of home and the concept of home. And then I started looking more outwards and thinking how people that look at my work will interact with it and engage with it, and what I can actually do and express for other people. And I thought also this opportunity was really good because there is a lot of Polish people that live in Leeds and don't speak English. They stay with their family, or they literally just go to Polish shops and spend time with their family. So they don't really need to learn. And I thought it would be a really nice surprise to see something familiar, but kind of a bit more like celebrated and beautiful.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of like surrealist inspirations, and I really like taking kind of ordinary spots. And I thought putting all these shops together into one would be, well, it's obviously not what it looks like. They are taken from all around Leeds. But I thought it would be really nice to put them all together. And I guess I wanted to say as well, like something I love about them is mostly they're independent businesses. So the graphic design and their kind of looks are all non-standardized. Everyone gets a bit creative, and some of the names are kind of just Polish inside jokes. So like on the bottom right, it's this shop is called Good Because It's Polish. That's literally what it means. And or like this, the bottom left, it's just called Family Shop. So I could see how it could be, yeah, just someone's family coming up with a simple name. And there's, yeah, I don't know how much detail to go into with them, but there's one called Polonez, and that's a Polish 80s car. The top second one, Tani's Club, it just means cheap shop. So yeah, I really like the quirk of the names as well.
Because I think the great thing is that I mean, there are lots of things going on, but there are two things going on. So that there are all the Polish people that ever see this poster get all the in-jokes. They probably can see the shop that they usually buy their things in. And all of us who go into Polish shops to buy things but don't know what it says, can see the one that we go into, but also get an idea of how rich and deep the Polish cultural community is in Leeds. Because I think there are probably people even in Leeds that maybe didn't know how many shops there were, or yeah, you know, I mean, in many cities in the north of England, at least, there are many shops. But this really looks to me as if it's kind of really thriving thing for people to do, and there are lots of customers who, you know, are making some very discerning choices as to which shops they go to. I think it's a whole side of Leeds that obviously, probably, if you live there, you understand. But if you don't live there, maybe you just didn't know that there was, you know, yeah, such a sort of historic presence. Because I think certainly friends of mine, you know, who are maybe about 45 years old now, can remember visiting Leeds from Poland when they were kind of 8 or 10, visiting Polish relatives there.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of, you know, it's a rich and deep culture, is what I'm trying to say. And I think you've got a great way of showing it. And what about, have you got a couple of images of work that you made before this piece?
Yes, I have probably too many.
Oh, just show us a couple, because we want to leave lots of time for Jioni as well.
Yes, absolutely. So let me see which way is best to go here. So I'm showing you quite a lot, but these are some of my paintings on paper. So I use like symbolism and photos that I take and combine them. And as I've been sort of experimenting more and more, I've incorporated other mediums. So I have this kind of experimental additive painting style, and I've also started cutting up the paper and making it, like in this piece, into more of a sculptural installation piece. And that has, yes.
And do you think that you know, I asked the other artists, do you think that that kind of billboard idea is something you would want to develop, or do you think your experiments will go more into a kind of sculptural direction and not really a kind of something that so interacts with the street?
I think it's definitely like aligned with where my practice has been going, because as public art, it's for people that might not typically go inside a gallery. and that's something that I'm really interested in. So one of the other things I'm working on is I can show you a little sneak peek. So it's like light art, but with still painting at its core and polishedness. And I'm interested in that because anyone can see it outside for free and go to a light festival. But yeah, definitely, yeah, more billboards would be amazing.
Well, great, thank you. Thanks very much. And hopefully we'll have time to come back round again. And could Jioni perhaps now share her poster with us and talk a little bit about it?
Yep, just gonna share my screen. So I kind of just began by thinking, what's my experiences of growing up in Leeds? I was born in Leeds and moved out when I went to university, 2017. And then on, because of university, being back and forth. And one thing I kind of experienced was kind of a mixture of experiences because it's a very cultural city. So, but at the same time, you kind of still experience the racism and the microaggressions. And I went to a predominantly white primary school. And then secondary school was very cultural, very mixed. But in both cases, I'd experienced, again, the racism and the microaggressions for my features, like my lips and my hair. And then, so began to think, kind of plan different things around those two things. I like to experiment with lots of different lipstick colors and lip glosses. And one thing that was key is that in my art practice, I've now started kind of, usually I've been working with portraiture and kind of tracing my ancestry, looking at the combined experience of being Black, British and Caribbean. And recently started looking at that through objects. So the lip gloss that I kind of remixed, I changed the text on it to then say balloon lips, which is something that I used to get called to make fun of having essentially thicker lips. Is a lip gloss that you'll literally find in any kind of Black hair and beauty shop. So again, kind of going into like that nostalgia with the objects that is in my previous work. And then at the end it says, now they imitate, and it kind of goes from the very kind of non-quote, first they mock, then they imitate, because in this kind of generation now, aesthetic procedures and things are so easily accessible, they're trending, everybody's kind of doing something. And now there's kind of this trend of having like lip fillers, for example, which again, growing up with thicker lips, I was again mocked for my lips, but now again, it's something that is a trend essentially. Yeah. So that's kind of where my design idea came from.
And what did you feel when you saw this this image of yours on the billboard? Was it kind of shocking to see it so huge, or?
It was. So this is kind of my first time using digital media to kind of create different artworks. So I was really worried and stressed, like, is it going to translate well being so large scale? And then when I saw it, it works really well. And then there was part of me that was like, my lips are on a giant billboard. So that kind of felt really weird. But it kind of feels kind of surreal.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just, the billboard generally is just such an exciting way to temporarily enter the city and then leave it. It's not so much pressure as making a piece of, permanent public art, but you can make this statement, especially on a site where you know, normally you would be actually selling something. So it's great to be kind of selling an idea in a public space instead of trying to sell a product. Do you think you could just show us just briefly, because I asked everybody else as well, just
Yeah.
a couple of images of other things that you've made, so that everyone gets an idea of the context, you know. Great.
Okay. I'm gonna flip through a couple, but this one is a Windrush inspired shoot that I did back in 2020. And I feel like this is the starting point from when I started exploring my heritage more. Kind of embodying that heritage and that character felt kind of very emotional. Because then when trying to capture these shots, I was working with another artist, photographer. To capture these shots, I was kind of trying to think, okay, how would I feel arriving to a country and trying to have these plans and how I think it's going to go. And I tried to kind of embody that in a sense. So it then became very, very emotional and surreal to be in 19s and 50s clothing, having a grandmother who's part of that Windrush generation as well.
Yeah.
And then translated that into a painting where the collage in the background is a mixture of celebrating the Windrush generation, but also highlighting that hostile environment that they faced. And then like here, quite close, you can see people there protesting Brexit. And it's essentially the Leave Means Leave, which felt very kind of reminiscent of the hostile environment the Windrush generation faced. I'm going to go to this one. So this, in tracing my ancestry, I kind of looked at myself first. And then from then, I've been going back. So then my next stop was my mother. And Leeds Carnival is one of the oldest outdoor carnivals in England. She previously was working lots with community groups and etc. And I see our lives kind of mirroring each other in a way. And because my family is a very matriarchal family, I wanted to kind of highlight that fact. And this is her in a carnival costume where she was a carnival queen. And again, that kind of double entendre of her being a queen. I was like, how do I paint this costume on a canvas? And a canvas didn't just seem to not do it justice.
Yeah.
And so the wooden board worked out quite well. Also quite reminiscent with your work with the cutouts as well. Was a huge inspiration for this piece of work as well.
Fantastic. What I'm gonna do, because of course, what you discover with doing events like this is actually I could have talked to each one of you for an hour about what you want to do, what you've done, the impact, so much, there's so much. And what I'm hoping is that, people watching this and the curators watching this will kind of keep in touch with you and keep following what you're all doing. And it might develop into something else. I certainly want to see if I can get an event together where all of the Billboard artists across the country that we work with meet together and do a kind of big one-day event. But I just have to be in the country long enough and persuade Beth to help me organize this thing. But anyway, I know we'll keep in touch and develop this. But I wanted to just see, so thank you, all of you, very much in sharing the work, because I think that's incredibly important. The more people that see it, the more, we have a recording of that, the better it is. But I'm wondering if I could just go back round again to ask each of you whether there's a city that you absolutely love. So I'm going to start with Becca.
Hello.
Hi. Is there a city that isn't Leeds that you really love anywhere in the world?
I do really like Brighton. It's just the sea. The sea is beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's very beautiful.
All right.
But I
so
do
you're
want
gonna
to,
take
yeah. Well, I just kind of wanted to circle back to Leeds only because it's still so new to me. It's just lovely. I would say lots of community stuff going on. People are definitely more chatty in the north. It's just really nice. It's lovely. Yeah, there's just a lot of creative stuff and community stuff going on. It's really nice. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So Hannah, so we've got Brighton, but a big vote for Leeds there. So Hannah, what about you?
It would have to be Glasgow. So I studied
Okay.
there. Yeah, I really rate it as a city.
Don't care that it's cold and wet.
Doesn't matter. I think like some nights I got like hypothermia, but I slept in a scarf, but it's okay. I forgive it.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, and then Alicja, what about you?
This might be I don't know, obvious, but Warsaw probably for
Which
me.
would you prefer, Warsaw?
That's where I'm from in Poland, and
Oh, your screen
oh,
seems
sorry, my
frozen.
connection went out. Can you repeat that?
I can hear you, but you're frozen. But is it Warsaw or Krakow that you like
Oh,
Warsaw?
yeah, that's I left Poland when I was pretty young, but I still go back every year, and I think as a city, it's just got a lot to offer.
Okay. We'll move on now to Jioni to see what does she think? What do you think? What you
I'm
vote?
gonna go with Leeds. I just feel like it has everything that I kind of need there, families there as well. So yeah.
Fantastic. I really enjoyed talking to you, and there are all sorts of things that that I could keep talking to you about. And I think this conversation especially has kind of really spurred me on to try to do a bigger, longer thing. But there's probably some questions from the people who are listening and looking. So maybe Holly might help us now with connecting up with the audience.
Absolutely. I can do that. And I just wanted to say that was fabulous. And thank you so much. It's always a joy when you put a call out and how pleasantly surprised you are by the sort of different ways that people interpret and approach the brief.
Yeah.
And it was just fantastic to hear about all the personal narratives coming through from the artists. And yeah, what a joy to hear from you all. So thank you very much. I'm just going to check the chat now to see if we have any questions. So not a question, but a comment or observation from Vicky, who says that unfortunately not all galleries are open to everyone due to lack of wheelchair access, etc. But I agree that we should celebrate them as civic spaces. I think that's sort of circling back to your earlier introduction, Lubaina, when you said that civic galleries were there for everybody and should, and so we should own them, which I thought was a fabulous statement. I don't know if you want to respond to that at all.
Well, I think it is really, I think if you live in a city, of course, it's the city's responsibility to take care of things, to make sure that we are all both kind of kept safe, but also have access to as many experiences as possible. I mean, that's the point about living in a city. Like Jioni said, for her, she feels it has everything. When Alicja is talking about Warsaw, you can see that enormous place and its many different layers and levels and histories. And the kind of amazingness of Brighton, you know, being a city, but being a seaside town at the same time. And well, you know, what can you not say about Glasgow? You know, it's an incredible place, annoying and incredible. But I think that we as people who inhabit cities have absolutely got a duty as well to participate, and where something isn't right or where something could be better or more family friendly or more young people friendly or just more open, or in the strict rules sense of the word accessible for those with difficulty moving about, we have to say, you know, we have to find a voice somehow to say, this is where we live, this is what we want, and not expect authorities who have other agendas, other sort of ways of looking at things. It's an absolute necessity, I think, and I think the poster project is part of that, to actually have a voice and say wherever you can and whenever you can and to whomever you can, actually, I think this city would be better if we had this or this or this. These are my ideas. You know, artists are just so clever because we see things on many levels at the same time. We're clearly not afraid to put stuff out there and start up a conversation. You know, of course, more cities should talk to more artists about more things. It absolutely is the answer. And that's what the show Found Cities, Lost Objects was about, just about showing that artists, when they're women approach place in a particular way, not necessarily a different way, but a particular way. And it allows another view of place. I think allowing another view of place is one thing, but we absolutely must commit to communicating, you know, and saying, actually, we don't like this, or we want more of this. And, you know, I maybe wait forever to wait for local authorities or regional authorities to ask artists, but I think that artists and the people that artists know, i.e. your families and your friends, just need to keep speaking and talking and communicating and exchanging. So that's my response to that, which is rather long as usual.
No, that's great. That's a good rallying cry. So there's one question in the chat to Jioni asking about your yellow paintings that you showed, and if you could speak to those.
So the paintings are a series of painted objects. It's titled Weekends. Objects that I kind of grew up relating to. One of them's a hi-fi system related to the music that was constantly playing in my household. There's actually two of them behind me. One of them's a hair beauty product. This one, you can just see the end, is a black chess piece. Sorry, it's the queen chess piece, but the black one specifically relating to, again, having a very matriarchal family. And there's just lots of different cultural objects, like having one thing about Caribbean households, there tends to be a wooden object somehow relating to an African culture. And I feel like everyone just seems to have one. So in my household, it was the clock. So I painted that clock of my childhood. So it's kind of drawn on that Black British Caribbean experience with the nostalgia, and the wallpaper is a note to my grandmother's wallpaper, which I basically redrew and screen printed, paying homage to that, again, Windrush generation and that kind of 60s theme going on. So it's quite nostalgic.
I'm finding that all of these artists are really good and capable of going backwards and forwards, you know, backwards, not backwards, but backwards through their family, through their experience, and then forwards into sort of seeing how they could change something. you know, there's a real kind of ability here with all four artists to work on many levels at the same time and bring that kind of richness to the fore. I think it's really exciting and admirable. It's great stuff, all four of you.
It's great. And we just have one more comment from Vicky here, who said, I think this is a great project. I enjoyed the diversity of each of the pictures. From a disabled person's viewpoint, I like the fact that Becca's picture is unintentionally wheelchair accessible. Sometimes access doesn't need to be singled out and is good for all.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Great, fantastic. Is there any more questions that anyone would like to ask from the audience? I realise that we've gone slightly over time, so that might be a good point to bring things to a close, if not. No, fabulous. Well, that just leaves me to say a huge thank you to Lubaina, our four speakers tonight as well, and Ronnie, who's been behind the scenes doing the AV tech support as well. And thank you all so much for joining us tonight. The talk's being recorded and we'll be popping that up on our YouTube channel in due course. And I hope you all have a lovely rest of your evening. Take care.
Thank you. And thank you to you as well. It's super. Thanks for organising it. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.